So oftentimes we forget about just how important introductions are to our writing. Um, think about it as a movie or a book. If it doesn't capture you right off the bat, what are you more than likely to do? Forget it. I'm done with it, right? So the same thing happens when we read your writing. We want you to harness the power of introductions. Okay? And there are a couple of different techniques that you can use to capture your audience's attention. And the first one, probably the one that you're most familiar with, is starting with a question. It can be a rhetorical question, or it can be a question that you are going to address in the body of your writing. When you start with a question, you bring your audience in and they then want to find out your answer. For instance, look at this example, okay, about St. Francis of Assisi and Buddha. Starts with a question. I don't know. Why would someone give up a life of wealth, become penniless beggar? And it makes your audience want to read more. Okay. So here's the question, and then the rest is the answer. You could also start with a story. You just have to be kind of careful with this, that you don't want your story to be too long. If you're only writing a couple paragraphs in your body, you don't want 3/4 of a page of a story for your intro. So this fable from Aesop with the fox and the hare, okay, it's great, but this is for a longer piece of writing. You could also start with some background information on the topic that you're going to discuss. Once again, you have to figure out how much is enough. You want to determine how much do I have to explain in order to give them enough to draw them in. So that's the same firefighter here in a different backdrop. Notice how the background gives us clues to the meaning of the picture. That same thing happens. That background gives us clues into what you're writing about. Are you writing about the national forest after a forest fire, or giving a safety class to elementary kids? So you can give a sentence or two of background information that you think your audience might need. Here's an example. Some background information about the most destructive fires in the last 6 years. And that background then leads into that person's topic sentence or thesis statement if it's a multi-paragraph essay. This one's probably the one you're least familiar with, is starting with a surprise. You're significantly more likely to die from a falling coconut than from a shark attack. You are considerably more likely to die from tumbling out of bed onto the floor than from a snake bite. 100 times more likely to drown than to be killed by lightning. However, you are far, far more likely to die in a road accident than from all these others combined. So it's a surprise statement. Maybe it's a surprise fact, a surprise anecdote or story, something that's you're like, whoa, your audience says, really? I didn't know that. And it draws them in. You could also start with some data, okay? A fact, a statistic, something that can be proven true or false, okay? Like this. Okay. Together, those 3 states represent about 70% of the acreage involved. And then your thesis statement becomes the National Ag Water Management Team to assess the degree. So this data can be important to provide background information, to also give a framework with which you're going to write. You could also start with a quote. This is another familiar one. For students, a question and a quote seem to be the two most used. Benjamin Franklin once said, "Tell me and I forget, teach me and I remember, involve me and I learn." So that's a quote, and it leads into the thesis statement. You can also start with an overview, an objective overview. So this one, if you're writing a persuasive piece or an argument essay, you want to maybe give an overview of both sides of the issue. Or you want to talk about the pros and the cons of something. That's an objective overview. We don't know, as the reader, your position on the topic until we get to your thesis statement. Oops. Can I go back? I don't know. There we go. There we go. Sorry. So read through this. We have students got distracted. Some people believe using the signal blocking technology is a good idea. On the other hand, opponents say this. There's no bias one way or another here. The author is just providing both sides of the argument. And then he or she will take a stand and a stance and develop it throughout the body of their essay. Any of these are perfectly fine for your introductory paragraph. I'm going to be showing you something called the inverted triangle intro, which is a formula that you can use in any writing situation that you encounter. It's 4 sentences and only 4 sentences, and you can use some of these techniques as the first of your 4 sentences. So you can pose a question, give a statistic, you can do a little scenario or a quote, something surprising. And I'm going to be talking to you about that in just a little bit.